A pleasure to meet y'all at last, and here we are at it again with some more of Bandtastic here on HJN Season 3. So some of you are probably wondering, what's next in line? There probably aren't that many bands to talk about relating to rock and roll. Actually, you could probably be wrong. Because what we're going to do here today for number 2123 is actually a more recent hit. Yeah, so unlike a good majority of classics I've talked a bit about, here we go. This is Big Time Rush. That's right. Nickelodeon's own band. They got their own TV series, they got their own list of albums and such to work with, and quite possibly one of the biggest flares that I might have ever heard in modern rock. Because these guys were unbelievable. You got all four of the members. Logan, Kendall, Carlos, James, and to tell you the truth here, I don't know exactly what I could possibly talk about here. Maybe I'll just get started with the facts at hand. There's quite a number of things that I could talk about based on the TV show that they had from Nickelodeon itself, but that itself could be a whole different subject based on a whole different series that I also have that's ongoing right now, where it talks all about TV shows that deserve the spotlight. There you go. Little cross promo right there, or cross reference I should probably point out here. But if anything, Big Time Rush probably isn't one of those shows that doesn't ultimately need to be put in the series. It's more about the obscured side, whereas they've gotten a decent amount of attention, and even today people happen to look back on that series as a pretty decent artifact in the early 2010s. But anyways though, these guys were first founded in 2006, and they unfortunately stopped in their work as soon as the TV show had come to an end in 2013. So by 2014, they pretty much just left. That was only 9 years that they were together. Not necessarily a long time as opposed to the really big long caps like with REM and Rush, but nonetheless, no matter how big the time gap was between the founding of the band and the disbanding of the band, Big Time Rush still is quite iconic. They have their own self-titled album in 2010 with such big hits like their own titular title, simply titled Big Time Rush, which also became the theme song for the show. So, that's quite resourceful actually. That's like if I made my own composition and decided to use that as the background music in one of my own shows. And you know what? That could probably be a thing someday, if I have the time and money and patience to pull it off. Though I could just hire somebody to do all that. Maybe not. But anyways though, there's plenty of other songs that they are so going to be familiar with. Ones that I especially recall listening to all the time as a kid: Worldwide, Invisible, You're Not Alone, and then of course, with 3 big albums, plus their own album which came from a soundtrack based on a little trip to England, I really ought to say, having only 4 albums along with a few separate release singles, it's not necessarily a big repertoire to work with. But I will say first of all, that while the band itself might be gone, there still are a lot of appearances by most of the members, if not all of them, in most mainstream media. For example, the oldest member of the group, James Maslow, actually made an appearance in Celebrity Big Brother years after. So that was pretty awesome. To get to see him in Big Brother, one of the greatest game shows ever made, that's quite a privilege. But you know what though? I really miss these guys. Just think about it though. Windows Down, Big Time Rush, 24/7. 3 albums to work with. Plus the soundtrack album from England, which didn't really have all that much originality to it. Then the separate release singles, like Any Kind of Guy. That itself was an amazing album. A single itself was quite memorable by any means. But, of course, there's one thing I might want to mention. It's the Ecstatic Mixover. 2 of their songs are in there. Amazing and Get Up. both of which come from the 2013 album 24/7, and that itself, I feel, not only was an incredible send-off to the band itself, knowing that their success might have been a bit short-term back then, but looking at it now, I can kind of see why they eventually had to make their leave. It's probably better to make their best work shine in the best ways possible without milking the system to the point where it's dry and unable to be recovered. So I feel like that it was a good idea to just stop at a point where their success was there, but yet they weren't going to fail over time. But still, it kind of leaves you with the feeling maybe they could have a little more success and a little more money in mind. But knowing that fact that the members aren't necessarily willing to get on back together and not necessarily bring a lot of new work or new material to the mix, I could see why that probably won't be possible, even to this day, when a lot of rock happens to be coming back in such a big fashion. I mean, lots of bands have been making new material in recent years. I mean, Death Cab for Cutie has done it, Amberlynn has done it, Bush has done it, All Time Low has done it, and I've even heard a bit of stuff relating to the likes of One Republic and Imagine Dragons. Like, it just proves rock and roll is never gonna die. Ever. Like, why not Big Time Rush? Why don't we get to hear from these guys again? Especially when Nickelodeon has actually recovered fully from a pretty crappy era in the 2010s. I mean, it was all over between 2013 and 2017, but since then they have actually built their way back up to mainstream status. I don't see a lot of logic in that, the way I see things. But you know what though? What am I to argue about this stuff? Whatever goes, just goes. If they want to stay separate, that's kind of their own problem. Anyways though, these guys were amazing. Period. Their TV show, their albums, their unique style as a boy band. Me growing up during that time, it was some of the greatest bits I've ever heard in my life. I'll always keep their albums with me on my iPhone, in my memory, in my childhood days. Doesn't matter. But other than that though, that's pretty much it. For a while at least. So make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow me wherever you can find me. If it's not social media, that is. And stay on the Hollywood side if you'd like to see more